David Brewster here with a new episode of Chordplay. This is the Chords of Pat Benatar, and I've had some requests to feature some of Pat's music. And of course, if we're talking about Pat Benatar, that means we're also talking about Neil Giraldo, who's been the guitarist in Pat's band since the late 70s. And technically, you know, Neil and Pat have been married since the early 80s, you know, the rock and roll romance between Pat and Neil. But definitely legendary rock musicians. They've released 11 studio albums, a dozen live albums. They've sold over 35 million albums worldwide. You know, a whole string of hit singles and popular videos that were on MTV. You know, pay attention. This is what rock and roll legends look like. The music in this episode came from the first 3 Pat Benatar albums, and I was going to dive a little deeper into her career and discography, but I got hooked on those first 3. And definitely those early Pat Benatar albums are rockin'. There's lots of great guitar work, great songs. And they did kind of stylistically change ever so slightly as they moved forward, but there's just something really special and magical about those early Pat Benatar albums. So anyway, here we go. With the opening, that's the song Treat Me Right from the album Crimes of Passion, and it's something like this. The song in just a second, but it starts with those single notes, that A to C, and then you're hitting that single D note into a D minor bar chord right there, like this. And then this A to B flat, F to E move. And then right back to that single D into that D minor bar chord, and then A to B flat, F to E. And then when the verse starts, it's just single notes. A single D, B flat, G. So that single D, B flat to G, and then do that A to C like we started the song right there. And then move back into D, and you're going to do... So you're kind of almost playing like a little part of the arpeggio, but that D to A to that G note, and then that F to G, and then you're going to move to B flat after that. Right, like that. And then spell out this A5, B flat 5, G5, and then A5. And then you distinctly hear this really high part of D minor, just kind of a hit right there, and go right back to that D minor move again. Like that, and then do it again. Or they're just bang on that A5 and go right back to the beginning again for the chorus. And you eventually hear that E minor to A minor, and then a G or a G5, and then a B flat, and then it goes right back to that A to C, and it starts the verse again. Classic song, Treat Me Right rocks. Next up's the song Never Wanna Leave You. This is also from the album Crimes of Passion, and it starts with a power chord riff, and then it almost turns into like a fast reggae kind of thing, like this. So it starts with this G power chord to a G over B to a D power chord like that. And then do that again, the G power chord to G over B to an F power chord right there. And then do that again, G, the G over B to D, G, G over B to F. The G minor. And I'm just separating the root. I'm using my thumb right there for the root note, and then that little part of the bar chord right there. Down to F major right there. The same idea with your thumb and that kind of part of the triad, but do that kind of quick, almost reggae kind of groove. And back to G minor. It's an interesting song, and that reggae groove is notable because you got to think the Police were on fire in the late 70s or whatever, so everybody was trying to churn out like a reggae influenced, rock song like that. Next up's the title song from the album In the Heat of the Night, and this is really interesting. Neil's doing this ringing, like minor bar chord, but then he starts kind of palm muting and doing some movement on the bottom of the chord. So you're doing this really cool kind of split chord thing like this. Treating those chords. It's really simple, but it's really effective. It draws interest. Like, what's going on right there? Because you hear all that kind of strumming and movement, even though it's just two chords. But he's basically playing a B flat minor bar chord, and then you want to basically lift up this fretted part and just bar the 6th fret and then hammer on those additional 2 notes there with your 3rd and pinky, like that, for the full, B flat minor bar chord. But then he starts kind of palm muting and just playing the lower strings, and he keeps kind of playing with that lifted, fretted part of the chord like that. And do it again. And do the exact same thing with E minor right there. Parts don't have to be hard to play for them to be interesting, and that's really simple, but it's really interesting. Next up's the song Don't Let It Show. This is also from the album In the Heat of the Night, and it's really cool, like this. picking your way through this chord progression. It's A major like that, and then it's A over G sharp right there, and then an implied F sharp minor 7 like that, and then an E6 sus4 like that. So it's interesting that that is remaining, like that little part of that A major triad. It's just the bass note that's changing. Like that, A over G sharp, F sharp minor 7, and then E6 sus4. And then you're going to do a B over C sharp and kind of slide into it, like that, to a B9. And then you're doing like this implied, what, E7 sus4 to E5, and that little R&B fill, and then you do it all again. Interesting guitar part, even though it's very simple, but it grabs your attention. You know, what's going to happen next? Next up's the song Hard to Believe. This came from the album Precious Time, and it's something like this. But it's really effective too. And the first, round of hits here with these power chords, you hear them kind of slide off. I think there's like an overdub second guitar that comes in and then just starts playing those chords. Chord progression is very basic. It's just E to B, C sharp to A, power chords right there. But then when the verse kicks in, the chords are stripped down to just octaves. So then it's an E octave, B octave, C sharp to A, octaves like that. It's very simple, but very effective because it catches your attention, and then you're hearing that chord progression, kind of mutate and change as it unfolds. Really cool. Last but not least is the title track from the album Precious Time with the song Precious Time, and this is a really cool song. Actually, there's a great guitar solo from Neil in this, and he's tapping in there. He actually does like a Steve Vai lick, years before Steve Vai actually played that lick, that raked kind of sweep lick. Totally, Neil was playing that in the early 80s. But Precious Time's like this. So it's got this crazy hit thing happening in the beginning, and that's just an E minor 7 down to a C sharp minor 7 like that. And then you hear this really interesting, E minor bar chord action, and he's kind of picking his way through it, and then he's spelling out an arpeggio within the chord. Like that. So he's kind of picking up, backwards. And then I'm hearing this C sharp minor 7 like that. And that sounds like it. I actually found live footage of Pat Benatar, playing this live, and Neil was really just playing an E minor bar chord there. Moved down and played a C sharp minor bar chord like that. It could have been a C sharp minor 7, but it looked like just C sharp minor. But that doesn't sound like the album to me. And that, C sharp minor 7 still doesn't sound like the album to me. I'm hearing that. For whatever reason, just sounds a little cleaner or clearer. There's a second guitar that creeps in at times. I'm going to loop this with the MXR clone looper. So here's guitar 1, that chord part, and then guitar 2 kind of sneaks in like this. That's really cool. So that's like E minor for that first part. Guitar 2, keep in mind, but that E minor right there, and then it's an E minor add 9 right there, adding that F sharp, but then that's also awaiting, you know, that C sharp minor chord, or C sharp minor 7 or whatever, but that's just kind of letting it ring all dreamy and stuff, like that, really cool. Check out Precious Time. That's a killer song and kind of forgotten. I think, you know, other Pat Benatar hits kind of eclipsed that one. But check out Precious Time. That's a great song, and like I mentioned, the guitar solo is killer. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Chords of Pat Benatar, and I've definitely noticed requests kind of pouring in for Neil and Pat Benatar's music, and anytime, you know, I mentioned them or kind of brought up some of their music, like maybe in some of the 80s, you know, Chordplay episodes, I noticed like in the comment section, you know, do Pat Benatar, you know, Neil Giraldo. So it's long overdue. This is definitely a long overdue episode. And I've always loved their music. Definitely back when I was in high school, you know, the drummer I cut my teeth with, Brant, you know, he and I used to jam out in his garage all the time. Van Halen tunes and Rush songs and Pat Benatar too. And we eventually played in a cover band and we covered a whole bunch of Pat Benatar songs. We had a female singer and she could nail Pat Benatar. She could really sing it. So we did like 5 or 6 Pat Benatar songs, you know, in that cover band. And that helped me dive even deeper, you know, into Neil's guitar style. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to my lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.